welcome back to the AfriCanadian Resource Center. And as we do every night, we join you to bring you the updates on the community within the African Canadian community, obviously. And tonight, what we are bringing you is a conversation we had with a member of the Nigerian community talking about the current protest that's taking place in Nigeria, obviously, that has rocked the community, the Nigerian community globally. So we're going to be bringing you that shortly. But first, before we do that, like we do every evening, I'm going to give you a bit of what's going on in terms of news, focusing on COVID. Today, Ontario reported 790 more COVID cases, testing still below the targeted 300 in Toronto, and the city has an infection rate close to 3%, as high as 10% in some areas. Obviously, these numbers are still going up. As we do every night, we just continue to hope and wish that this is going to end. But in the meantime, you know, continue to do what you do, stay safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, do what you need to do to stay safe. Also, there is a story that we've been bringing you every night the last couple of days about the community in Halifax, the Mi'kmaq community that has been facing a lot of in terms of what the fishermen in Halifax have been attacking them. It says that the Halifax restaurants now have taken the lobsters off their menu in solidarity with the Mi'kmaq community, saying that after the riot by the non-Indigenous communities against the Mi'kmaq, these restaurants wanted to unify with the members of the Mi'kmaq community. Obviously, we commend them for doing that, and hopefully we can have a decision made soon. And obviously, looking historically at what has been taking place, says that the Supreme Court closely studied the 18th century treaty in its 1999 decision and found that the documents in fact gave the rights of the Mi'kmaq people to hunt, to fish, and to gather for sustenance and for trade, for necessities in their community. And in effect, the ruling affirmed the fishing rights for the Mi'kmaq and other Eastern Canadian Indigenous communities. Of course, so you could see that these members of the Nova Scotian community in Halifax have the Nova Scotian community have the right to do what they want, what they are doing, but also what's taking place, the violence that's being taken against them is something that we really need the government to take steps to make sure that it ends soon, because we cannot allow Indigenous members to continue to face these kinds of brutality. Of course, going with the same theme today, it seems like there's a lot of bad news happening, and as you know, we wanted to always bring you positive news, but this week, especially today, it's mostly sad news. We are looking at 2 Arab women who were stabbed by a white woman in Paris in a shooting when somebody screamed the dirty Arab. And this came after an Arab man was beheaded a French school teacher for providing an image of Muhammad in his class. Again, I don't know how we're still looking at these kinds of news stories, but that's the world we live in. Let's hope that we can learn and move forward and actually live in the 20th century that we claim to be in, and having the knowledge and the information that we have. We should not be treating each other the way we are. Anyways, going to the story we have for you tonight, we are learning that protesters have defied the round-the-clock curfew to remain on the street of Lagos as unrest continues in Nigeria's largest city after soldiers opened fire on demonstrators, causing multiple deaths. And of course, buildings were set on fire, and further gunfire was reported on Wednesday after a night of chaotic violence following 2 weeks of national protest over the police brutality. And they are saying that as many as 12 people died, according to the witness who spoke to BBC. We also wanted to show you a little bit of that in the news that was covered by BBC today. Then from that, we are going to show you the interview that we had with Mr. Akin of the Great Mighty Things here in Toronto, who went into details. Actually, tonight, the entire program, we are going to talk to him, really understand what is taking place in Nigeria. How did we get here? Why is it the case that the government is not responding, or at least didn't respond in time as they're supposed to. And what are the young people looking for? What are the answers they're looking for? Because for them, it's not about just like the End SARS hashtag or movement. It's beyond that. They are looking beyond that. They are looking to change the ways things are run in Nigeria. And of course, for those of us who are African, we know that that's a song that we want to sort of see across the continent. So without further ado, here's the coverage from BBC, and then we'll go on with the coverage, with the interview.
We are comforted that we have not recorded any fatality.
Protests allegedly turning violent on the streets of Lagos.
Everyone sit down, sit down, sit down!
We haven't been able to verify this footage, but it's said to show uniformed men shooting at protesters. One eyewitness said they counted around 20 bodies and at least 50 injured. Human rights organisation Amnesty International said it also obtained credible reports of deaths, and that soldiers allegedly barricaded the protest area, preventing ambulances from reaching the injured. The authorities have promised an investigation. Earlier in the day, the protests were largely peaceful. A special anti-robbery squad may have been disbanded, but many here are still unhappy with police brutality. They want more changes to the security forces, as well as reforms to the way the country is run.
We're here because we believe in what we're fighting for. We're firm to it. And if you listen to our national anthem and our national pledge, we are here to defend our unity.
We are fighting for the truth. We are fighting for the labor of our heroes past. We don't want it to be in vain.
I prefer to die well for my children to have a better tomorrow. The truth is it.
Protests like these have been ongoing for 2 weeks, but the authorities have had enough, now imposing an indefinite 24-hour curfew on Lagos and other regions. The question is, have the protesters had enough too? Paul Hawkins, BBC News.
Well, the protests which went so badly wrong last night have been going on for the past 2 weeks. They began over Nigeria's special anti-robbery squad known as SARS, which has been accused of illegal detentions, assaults and shootings. President Buhari dissolving the police unit last week, but demonstrations continued, calling for more changes in the security forces and wider reforms against corruption. The Lagos state governor claims criminals have now hijacked the protest movement. On Tuesday, he announced an indefinite curfew across Africa's largest city and ordered anti-riot units to be deployed around the country.
All right, Akin, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, considering the circumstances today and what we want to talk about, it's very sad. But first, tell our audience about you and what you do in the community.
My name is Akin Rotimi, and so I run a communications agency here in Toronto, and what essentially we focus on is communications for development, helping nonprofits and charities to amplify the work that they're doing in the communities around here. Of course, I'm a Nigerian, and very much very much connected to what is going on at home, and like every Nigerian all over the world, we're currently dealing with communal trauma, based on some of the unfortunate events going on in Nigeria.
Yeah, and thank you for stating that, because I think the idea of trauma, sometimes we see it when it's past the actual event. But the fact that I know you're working and you've worked a lot in the non-for-profit sector dealing with trauma, so for you this one hits home. Tell us what's going on in Nigeria, because let me just give people the background. For people like me, as a Rwandan who lives through genocide against Tutsis, when things like the protests and the things that are happening in Nigeria happen, or even Black Lives Matter movement, all of these brutalities that take place, when they're happening, for people like me, we choose not to follow because it affects us and it takes us back. So I really wanted to have you on and to have an understanding of what's going on. I do my best not to do the social media following, but now obviously when it gets to a point like this, we don't have a choice because we want to support our brother. What's going on exactly in Nigeria?
Right. So, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Trauma is hard to deal with. There's a lot to take and process going on the internet all over the world, right now in Nigeria. For those of us, that for those that are not in Nigeria that see those things on the internet, it's depressing enough. So you can imagine those actually on ground. Now, to provide some context, there's been an uprising, by young people in Nigeria, in recent times concerning police brutality. There's been you know, a series of events, a series of human rights violations by, an organization, a unit in the Nigerian police force called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, which was designed actually to address, armed robbery and other things like that, but unfortunately got out of hand and actually turned on the people. So we've had series of gross human rights violations. In fact, Amnesty International this year documented 82 cases of torture, ill treatment, and extrajudicial executions that happened between January 2017 and May 2020. Now, these are incidences that the Amnesty International was even able to document, but recently a lot more has been coming out to show that almost everybody has been affected in one way or the other, or knows someone that has been affected, a close kith or kin. So essentially, you have a police unit that is meant to protect the people actually turning on the people, right? You have a police unit that profiles young people based on their own perceptions. They see someone with dreadlocks and think the person must be a criminal. They see someone with tattoos, they think the person must be a criminal. They see someone with an iPhone and they think the person must be a criminal. And it results in rape, it results in extortion, and it results in many cases to actual extrajudicial killing of young people. Now, this has gone on for a long time. This has gone on for a very long time. In fact, the NSAS hashtag is not something that is exactly new. It has been around since 2017, where people have tried to bring attention to this issue, but unfortunately, the government just didn't do anything about it. Up until October 8th, when all of these protests, started spontaneously all over Nigeria, right, following the killing of a young man, right, which was recorded, a killing of a young man that I didn't, you know, it's very difficult to process. But seeing these things, is what led to the protest all over the country, and it's gone on for a while. The young people, have been very organized and been very organic in how it has been organized, very peacefully demonstrating and making demands of government to actually reform, and address, these fears, these concerns that have been going on for such a long time, and which, government did nothing about, essentially. So, if you ask me, this NSAS is a monster that the Nigerian society, the Nigerian elite, the Nigerian government, you know, as nurtured for a long time, and which is now escalated in their faces beyond what they expected. Unfortunately, the response of the Nigerian government has been typical. They've used the old tricks in the books, which essentially is not working for this generation. This is a digitally connected generation that are able to document, are able to collect evidence, are able to spotlight whatever it is that they are going through. So the usual tricks of intimidation of young people has not just been working, and which is what they find difficult to process. So the young people have essentially said, you need to put an end to police brutality, and they were very organized and made 5 clear demands from government, which includes the immediate release of all arrested protesters, because it is the rights of young people, enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution, for everybody to be able to peacefully protest. They've asked for, the second demand that was asked for is justice for all deceased victims of police brutality and appropriate compensation for their families. So, Kizito, you as well, from
Akin,
from from your experience, during the genocide in Rwanda, you can relate. You can relate with it. You can relate with what people have gone through. You have families where sons and daughters are taken away, right? And for years, people have not heard back from their families. They've not, people don't even have closure. People have instances where all they know is that their brother or their sister was arrested in a certain place. They pay money, they pay bribes, they pay all sorts of things, and yet, these people are killed. These people are killed. And when people go on like this doesn't happen, how do we run a society? How do we run a country where these things go on and people just feel like it's just going to go away? Too many instances, Kizito, too many instances of this. And it's just unfortunate. And, and that's why one of the demands of the protesters is justice, validating the fact that these things happened, right? And allowing victims to seek justice. They've also asked in relation to that for the setting up of an independent body, judicial panel of inquiry to judicial panels of inquiry at the subnational levels to be able to document these things, pretty much like the Truth Commission that happened in Rwanda and in many places, to investigate and document these things. And they've also asked, which is a very important point, that in line with the new police act, so actually the president did sign a police act in September 2020, which, hopefully would be a good tool where this comprehensive reforms, can happen. But so the judicial panel of inquiry has been set up in most states at the subnational level to try these things. And then beyond that as well, they've also asked, the fifth demand is that you need to look at police welfare. You see, because some of the reasons when you have a police officer with a gun that's earning an equivalent of $120 a month, and he has a family, and how does that work? All of the issues that led to this monster, it's the inequality in society. It's the inequality in society. The fact that you have a police force that are ill-equipped, you have a police force that are ill-motivated, that are not well paid, and you have politicians, you have the political class that are earning so much, and there's this gross disparity. Mind you, you have Nigerian young people that form about 70% of the entire population, yet these guys are excluded from opportunities. They're excluded from crucial decision-making processes, crucial spaces. You have politicians that have been in government for so long. The youth are the future of tomorrow. The youth are the leaders of tomorrow. Yet these guys have been in government for decades and have done nothing, about improving the lot of young people. So that essentially is what led to the protest all around. Sadly, yesterday, October 20, 2020, which would go down in history, in Nigerian history, right, for a very long time.
It's okay, man. It's okay.
You had
it is understandable.
You had unarmed protesters draped in the Nigerian flag, singing the Nigerian national anthem. And yet, in what appears, I'll still use, because I'm trying to be responsible here, I'll use the term alleged, right? But what has come out with overwhelming evidence is that there was a premeditated action to silence protesters. And it is alleged that the Nigerian military actually opened fire on these people, unarmed protesters draped in the Nigerian flag, singing the Nigerian anthem at one of the protest sites that were judged to be one of the most peaceful everywhere in the country. They opened fire on these guys. Before that, we saw an instance, there's been reports of CCTV cameras being deactivated and disconnected so that these things would not be seen. There were reports of power being cut off, power supply being cut off, so that all these things could be done in darkness. So, like I said, it's communal trauma. Barely any Nigerian slept yesterday, processing, these issues. So that is what has led to this point. And you mentioned again that the international community, I don't really care very much about the international community broadly, because for them, they try to fit their priorities in terms of foreign policy, what suits them. For me, brother, it's about African leaders. It's taken so long for African leaders to engage with the Nigerian government and add their voices to this campaign that the Nigerian government has to respond in a very humane way, to what is going on, and must respond with coordinated action. You can't just wish these issues to go away. It would not just go away. You need to engage with the young people and set in motion the processes. But of course, we've also engaged with young people as well, because of what is going on. I mean, it's not my generation. I'm 39. I'm not exactly a youth. I don't fall into the category of those, actually leading the process, right? But the point I'm making is it affects all of us. I can't tell them how to run the protest, but we can only support in whatever ways. But we've asked that they be strategic about engagement to try to transition from the street level protests that have obviously been infiltrated by all sorts of miscreants, to translate and transition from street level protests. Because right now, we don't want any more bloodshed. We don't want any more bloodshed. They need to translate and transition to proactive engagement of government to ensure that the demands are met without any more loss of lives. So that essentially is what's going on in Nigeria at this time. It's very pathetic, So that's essentially it.
But I can just maybe to look at what's going on. For young people who have seen this and who are looking at their elders who have lived through this, because if you look throughout Africa, to be honest, we are allowing these things to go on, where the fear from the police can really paralyze an entire nation. And so, and I think we've tried these conversations in many different countries in Africa, where we say, okay, we can have our demands met in the political process, and then these things go on forever, or somebody would retire because of it, not retire, but like resign, and then someone else will come in for a year, they will do well, and then after that they'll go back to doing the business as usual, which is what's going on right now in Nigeria. So is it fair to say, because I think the blame is definitely on the government and the police and the military, they should take the responsibility, not the young people who are protesting peacefully, right?
No, certainly. So this is not about the young people, and there is no way anyone can justify or gaslight young people for all that is going on. No, it's not the fault of the young people at all. It's not the fault of young people that they don't trust their government. It's not the fault of the young people that last year, based on agitations, there was some inquiry and a committee that was set up to look into SARS, and the report was submitted, but till now nothing was done. It's not the fault of young people that they've asked for demands, but people just thought it was going to go away like that. It can never be the fault of young people. It's not the fault of young people that every day, even during the protest, people were still being intimidated. There were still these instances of extrajudicial killings and maimings and all of that. It can never be the fault of the young people. So government has the capacities to proactively engage, and you know how it is when it comes to timing. You from the Rwandan experience, you know what it is about timing, doing things at the right time, and not allowing things to fester. And for that, the blame is on the Nigerian government 100% for not taking the right steps and the right and showing and demonstrating, public communication, engaging with people to make them believe that yes, indeed, we understand and empathize with what it is that you're going through, and we are taking, those steps. Because for a long time, just like you said, we've seen things go round in circles, right, where they make a pronouncement. So indeed, in fairness to the Nigerian government, the unit SARS was actually dissolved, right? So there was a presidential order to that effect that it had been dissolved, but again, that in that same order came the announcement that it was being that a new unit was going to replace that. I mean, who does that? Who advises these guys? Yes. So you're just going to change the name from SARS, you're going to change it to SWAT. Right, same sort of people, same sort of orientation. Exactly. Without, in fairness as well, because I need to be, very accurate here. The government did say that nobody in the old SARS was going to be a part of the new one and all of that. And yet, yes, the vice president did try to engage. The president did make a statement, but all these things, right, have not been commensurate with the amount of trauma that young people have gone through. See, look, you have young people that government has literally done little or nothing, right, to help young people.
Even during COVID, right?
During COVID, if we want to go into that, we would spend hours. You know what I mean? About the Nigerian government's response. It's just laughable. It's laughable. And these are people, these are young people that have succeeded and continue to struggle, right, to survive, not because of help from government, but in spite of a lack of help from government. So the average Nigerian young person, living by his or herself, is operating in the informal space, trying to make, a living for himself and trying to get ahead. And in that same space, you have it closing up where the only thing that they have, the only thing that they can, the right to personhood, the right to life, these are fundamental human rights, is being denied to them. So it was more like all of this pent up frustration that led to this outburst of protest that looks like they've had it. They've had it. So if government is not going to do something about it, they're going to take it upon themselves to ensure that these demands are met. And you need to follow through the NSAS campaign. It's been very, very organized. They've demonstrated to government what efficiency is, what accountability is. There have been different sort of organizations. You had very organically organized with no defined leaders. And that's the problem that, the government has had as well, because previously people are picked up. You know what I mean? When anytime there's an uprising like that, you have, leaders, but there's just been no leaders, no clearly identified leaders for them to pick up, and that has been, the bane of the Nigerian government's response as well. So essentially you have, they've organized medical response units, they've organized even psychological trauma and counseling. They've organized all sorts. They've provided welfare. Feeding protesters daily. They've raised funds transparently and accountably, and they've done all of these things outside of formal government structures. And that is what gives one the hope that, look, this generation perhaps is that generation that is going to turn the tide and actually change the course of Nigeria's history. So their demands, is a lot. And Kizito, we've talked about this a lot. If Nigeria gets it right, the whole of Africa is going to get it right, right? Everybody, and that's why
I was just having a conversation now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that ripple effect of Nigeria getting our acts together, getting our young people, involved, gainfully employed and energized, the African uprising can be real. And this is this golden moment, 60 years after Nigeria's independence. This is that golden moment that generations that have come before us, things that they failed to do, this young generation is rising up to say they're going to get things done, right? They must change,
get it
things
done
must
and
change.
get it done now too, because what happened, and I was having
Exactly.
this conversation with someone from Ghana, where we've had independence, but we've not had freedom from the European hand. And I think that is the challenge we
Absolutely.
keep going,
Absolutely. So these are the vestiges. Yeah, some of these things are the vestiges of, yes, years of colonialism, years of military rule, years of all sorts of things that are, and that's why right now, a lot of people are trying to frame this narrative along ethnic and religious lines. It's not true. This is not a north-south divide. There's nothing Christian, Muslim about this. This is just young people that are fed up with the status quo and are asking for reforms across board, not just about NSAS. NSAS goes beyond that. It's just a symbol. It's just one of the things that has galvanized the young people. They're asking for more, a more equitable society. They're asking for us to look at government structures, um, to look at the Senate, to look at the National Assembly.
Yeah,
All of
I was
these
just
people
gonna,
that
maybe
take a
if we can
disproportional,
talk about that a little bit. I was looking at
yeah,
the funds or the budget for the government officials versus the funds for the healthcare system and the funds for like a different systems. And the government officials have almost like 10 times the amount of the budget. And this
it's
is just like the
unbelievable.
Senate and the registrate compared to the healthcare system for about how many people, how many millions in Nigeria?
So it's estimated at 200 million Nigerians now. It's unbelievable. There's no
Mm,
functional public healthcare system. It's everybody. So in Nigeria, there's this joke that, well, it's not a joke because it's the reality of a lot of people, that you are more or less your own government. You're providing your own power because there's no stable power supply. You are one step. You're providing their own healthcare, providing their own security, providing everything. Yet you have a disproportionate amount of money going to cater to entitled politicians of the older generation that don't even seem to have any empathy at all. But
mm,
again, we need to be very careful about just you know it's a very difficult challenge, to be honest. And this is the one opportunity that we have, right, to truly reform the system. And the encouragement that I want to give to young people is that a lot of these things require structural changes. A lot of these
mm,
things are not things that, and that is why we should not let this moment go to waste, right?
mm,
Young people need to start organizing, right, to see changes in the status quo, structural changes. The elections are coming on in 2023. Young people need to start organizing to get political power, to have people that truly are accountable to the people and
mm,
not to any politician, or not to any leader that put them there, to create
mm,
those changes, to bring transparency in government spending, and bring you know, and to essentially change the course of the nation. So
mm,
the example that you gave, yes, we do have a National Assembly that is very shrouded in a lot of secrecy around, the appropriation of funds, and, generally the disposition that they have towards the rest of the society. And it's just not sustainable. You know what I mean?
mm,
This is something that um, it was long coming. It's been long coming. You've had a
mm,
lot of pent up anger, a lot of pent up frustrations that has gone on
mm.
for a very, very long time. And it was just a matter of time. And a lot of people have called this out. A lot of people have said this. A lot of people have. It's a natural progression. What has happened
Yeah.
has been nurtured and fed by the Nigerian elite, the Nigerian
Mm.
political class, that has excluded young people from the opportunities, and more or less, allowed such heinous instances of police brutality that, brother, it's unthinkable. Not
It is.
even in wartime. Not in war. People
Yeah.
are dragged out of cars and killed in broad daylight. And a lot of these things, when you have a country that has normalized these things, because over the years you see these things and you sort of it sort of gets normalized, and which is wrong. It's not normal. It's not
By
normal
the
for
way,
you
yeah,
to see
that's
someone that
what
looks
leads
like you.
to yeah, that's what leads to what took place in Rwanda in 1994. Is normalizing calling a group of people animals, calling different names that are not
Exactly.
human, to the point where you think they deserve to be killed and to be wiped out of a
Exactly.
planet. And so, to me, seeing this in Nigeria of all places, like I've had the same experience. I was talking about it yesterday in Kenya. When we just got to Kenya, police would just grab you almost like they knew you had money, but they were only grabbing you to get your money. But they were mostly
Mhm.
grabbing foreigners. But in Nigeria, this is brothers and sisters once again. This is like what took place in Africa, where they hate half for each other. I still cannot understand how we are still like this in 2020.
It's
That's to
unbelievable.
me what.
It's unbelievable. But this certainly is a breaking point. This certainly is it's not going to. It's definitely, Nigeria is not going to be the same again. However way we look at it, Nigeria can
Mm,
never be the same again with all that is happening. We're praying, and hoping that all of these things lead to the point where something does give. It's a lot of crisis right now. It's
mm,
a lot of crisis right now in Nigeria all over. Um, you know, there's been a lot of carnage. There's been a lot of, and I'd just like to, encourage, young people that, look, if we go on destroying public property and other places, it doesn't help us, right? We need to
mm,
get back to that point where we strategically engage with the process. And I mean, you have a lot of heroes. You have a lot of heroes out there that have been on the
mm,
streets, that have been engaging and putting their lives literally on the line. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of people as well to this crisis, and
yeah.
as part of the demands that are being made is that these people get justice, right? These people get justice, like the government has mandated. Judicial panels are being set up across all the states in the country, 36 states, and we must turn attention. So by God's grace, I'm going to be serving on one of such panels, right? We need to
Mm,
turn attention to those panels to ensure that nothing is done in secrecy, nothing is
mm,
done to sweep things under the carpet, because that is one thing that this generation of young people will not accept. People want to
absolutely.
see that um, things are properly, because we've had that history. We've had that history of a human rights commission called the Oputa panel that was set up to look at cases of human rights violations when we returned to civil rule, and that more or less was just swept under the carpet. Very many of the
Mm,
provisions, nothing was literally done about. We must listen to people. Some of the work we're doing right here in Canada about trauma,
yeah.
about validating people, about allowing people to talk and vent.
Yeah.
People must talk. You have mothers
Yeah.
that have lost children. You have brothers that have lost sisters and brothers. You have people, we've lost young people to this monster. And
Mm,
we need to allow them to talk. We need to allow them we need to properly document and allow people, open up channels for people to be able to communicate these things. We need to
mm,
identify those that are culpable and ensure that they are prosecuted. And we
mm,
seek justice, and we ensure that people have adequate compensation for these grievous crimes. Aside of that, we must ensure as a country that we deal with the root causes that led to SARS happening. So it's not. I must correct an impression as well. It's never a thing about against the police,
mm,
because there are a lot of good people in the police. There are a lot of people that are serving patriotically. When we want to look again at the police, and like I said, the president signed the Police Reforms Act in September, we must begin to hold the feet of government to fire to ensure that these things are followed through. We have a force that people are. How do you have a police force without proper insurance, proper health care, and you give that person a gun? What do you expect of the person? You turn such people, on citizens in the streets. Those things are just natural, and that's why beyond just the prescription of SARS, young people are asking for young people leading this conversation, which is very important, supported by other people, the whole of the country, at home and abroad, supporting them to say we must deal with the systemic causes of all of these issues that have allowed such violations to happen in the first place. So it's the only thing we can ask for our African brothers and sisters is to help to amplify um, these calls, the protest, yes, to help to amplify it. Use your platforms, use your channels everywhere. We are going to ensure as well that by God's grace, the events of October 2020 would be a turning point, right? So there's going to be accountability. Nigerians are going to demand accountability for what happened. Who gave such orders for unarmed peaceful protesters to be shot at? It is something that we're going to follow through. The international community is going to keep up with the advocacy as well, because you've had statements by the Amnesty International and many other such bodies to the effect that we expect and demand that the president orders an investigation into that matter. Failing which, I mean, Nigeria is a signatory to the Roman Statute on the of the International Criminal Court. This must go up all the way to ensure that if people are found culpable, if indeed the allegations are true, people are held to account according to Nigeria's laws, and failing which, these things will be taken up to the very highest levels to ensure that those victims get justice. So that's essentially what's going on in Nigeria. It's very sad. It's very pathetic. It's something that every Nigerian, everywhere, at home and abroad, everyone is concerned about. There's nobody that can say they are not affected. We all are going through communal trauma at this point in time. If you see a Nigerian, just try to be extra nice, because these are not very pretty times.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry, because obviously, like for us, specifically for me, these things happen. I see it and I keep my distance, and now I'm realizing, just talking to you, but also I was talking to our colleague who is also Nigerian, how much it's affecting your community. And so that's why definitely I was like, no, we need to talk about this. And also, hopefully, we get our leaders, we get the power players in Africa to also get involved, get engaged, not just watch things from the sideline because it might be a friend to the leadership of Nigeria. Actually push the government of Nigeria. That's why we're there. That's why other governments in Africa are there, to make sure that something like this, when it's happening, we don't wait until the worst happens before we can step in. We do that right now. And I know some of the African governments might be fearing the same thing happening in their community. But for those that are in good standing with their citizens, today, not tomorrow, today, they need to step up and let the government in Nigeria know, we cannot do business with you if you treat your people like that. We cannot allow Africa to continue to go through this. In 2020, we cannot be living like this. Like, the world is laughing at us. Like, how do we treat our own people like this?
It's pathetic. Kizito, you had recently a young, two young guys that started a tech company that was just, bought, but with for $200 million. These are young Nigerians that, with their ideas, they sat down, incubated a business, incubated an idea, and turned it into a $200 million company. If you look at these guys are the typical targets of police brutality because they have dreadlocks, they have tattoos, they they look like the people that these guys think are criminals. How does that work? How does a tech entrepreneur go around with a laptop and you say because the person is with a laptop, the person must be a fraudster? How do you allow that to happen? Where young people that are not given opportunities, that are trying to do these things themselves. I have engaged with young people driving businesses in Nigeria, and power goes off during a meeting or during something, or you have unstable internet, you have all sorts of challenges that they have, and these guys run from pillar to post, just trying to compete, trying to be productive, and you target such people, right, to be extorted. This is literally the lived reality, the lived experience of a lot of young people. Almost every one of them have faced one sort of crime crisis or the other at the hands of the police. It should not be. It's not a normal society. We've allowed it to fester for too long. The society has evolved to the point where the young people have said, never again, never again, never
Enough
again.
is enough. And I know for Nigeria, one thing we share with Rwanda, Nigeria has, you said it even earlier, 70% of your population is under the age of 35, if I'm not mistaken, probably younger.
Absolutely. Yes, correct.
That means, to be honest, the leadership, this assembly, all of that should be, at least 70% should be under the age of 35. That's really, to
No,
me,
absolutely.
democracy. These
That
elders
should
need
be
to
the
step aside.
representation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hear you about that. Yeah, that political participation, political offices should be representative of, the demographic structure, right? Young people are in the majority, then they should be visible in government and have a voice in the democratic spaces that, the public, the political spaces that affects their lives. You know what I mean? You can't have a situation where you've had people recycled over generations. You've had people that have
And
been in government
bringing
since the
no vision,
70s.
bringing no solution, just the same nonsense every
No new
time.
ideas, no new
Yeah.
ideas, no new ideas. And that's why, no new ideas. That's just what I would say. And it's unfortunate. We keep plastering things over. And that's why personally, I've just had it to the point where I've been in government before, trying to work from within. It got to the point I took a step back because it's almost like you're just papering things over. There's just so much of issues to deal with. Poverty has been weaponized. You know what I mean? That you're coming against an impoverished people that even during elections, these same politicians come, right, and monetize the entire process to ensure that they just retain. But I'm sure that pretty much things will change because people have learned now. Elections are not going to be the same again. People know that they're not going to sell their birthrights for any stipends during elections. Yeah, so that essentially it's a seismic change, right, in what is happening. Young people are going to demand greater accountability. Young people are going to organize and ensure that they put the right people in office. But you see, I also need to make this clarification about um, um, this generational disconnect, right? It's not like everybody in the older generation, have been totally evil and bad, and all Nigerian politicians are bad. It's not exactly correct. You have a lot of reformers from within that have been working at it and trying their best to make things happen. And that's why, we need to go beyond that mentality of, oh, government and then us. No, people need to seize those spaces. People need to work with those within to bring about the required reforms. So it would be unfair for us to denigrate the entire, political class. No, there are people
I
out
think
there
I'm always
that have
generalizing things.
exactly that have very sacrificial. And you have people that are of the older generation as well that have remained a voice, that have remained the conscience of the nation, that have remained active at the barricades, within the corridors of power, everywhere, trying to work from within, dealing with the monsters and dealing with the demons that have held Nigeria down for so long. Now we need to work together. We need a cross-generational, we need to develop cross-generational solutions. Young people together with those across board, well-meaning people across board, because these are systemic issues that require all hands to be on board to be able to fix. And yeah, so that's essentially it. It's we need to be careful about that rhetoric that, oh, everybody. It's not true. There are a lot of people
No,
in there also trying to
I
work at
definitely
it.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for
Yeah.
me and I think everybody understands. Not everybody's bad. Obviously, we have good people. That otherwise we would have been, we wouldn't even exist anymore. I definitely, I get it. It's just a matter of making sure that we actually have a representation and we're not always led by people who have no vision. But what I want to ask you, and our last question, Akin, is how do we maybe in terms of for those of us that want to follow the process, even the commissions that have been set up, how do we follow that? Where do we go to follow that? And also, how do we follow you to make sure that you have the updates that are going to be coming up?
Okay, so it's not about me personally because, like I said, this is being driven. My generation cannot take credit for a lot of things going on. Most of the people of my generation, right, have essentially, that have very good intentions and have been very altruistic. We've done a lot to sort of mitigate the issues some way, somehow. So you've had efforts at releasing people from prison. You've had efforts at, providing legal representation. You've had all these sort of things have just been, palliatives. How many of such things can you do? But the young people have come to say that, look, we don't want such one-off solutions. We don't want a situation where one person just says, okay, let me go try to release some awaiting trial prisoners that have done nothing but have been in prison for so long. That's not what we're talking about. Holistic, right? Prison reforms, security sector reforms. This generation is very different, and they are the ones that must take the credit, right? For although again they are building on some of the foundations that previous generations have done, because the advocacy, you have people of the older generations that stood up to armored tanks, that stood up to military dictatorship, that have done so much. So we can't discount all the things that they've done. But this generation is different. This generation is demanding that we don't just want papering over issues. We want a holistic reform. And they're not going to accept anything less than that. They are going to be transitioning from street level protest to other things. And perhaps nobody knows, they might decide to also take on street level protest when they reorganize, re-strategize, and all of that. We must continue to support them. There's a hashtag, end SARS hashtag. Again, it is not just about ending SARS, because in fairness to the Nigerian government, they have dissolved SARS, but that end SARS hashtag has become that rallying cry for bringing attention to all the issues. So you can follow that. It's not about me personally, to be honest. Like I said, about one of the demands, the Judicial Commission, it's been set up across all the states. People need to start paying attention to holding those panels to account to ensure that they actually deliver on the mandate of securing justice. So those panels have young people that are representatives. It has student representatives. It has youth representatives. It has civil society representatives. It has all sorts of representatives that are there. We need to ensure that is one of the crucial tasks, to ensure that people are humanized. We don't want people to just be statistics. We want to help people to seek closure. How do you have a child disappear and you don't know where that child is 10 years after? These are not stories from movies or films or books. These are real life lived experiences of people. So they can follow, everybody can follow that, add your voice to it, add your voice to the campaign, and seek ways. There are ways as well. I mean, I wouldn't, endorse any particular platform, but there are organizations that are organizing, raising funds, and doing all sorts of things to support, people that were injured, people that were, that have been affected, those seeking justice. So there are all sorts of platforms, that are that are being organized. People just need to ensure that we keep the advocacy up so that Nigeria finally can get it right and hopefully would catalyze the African rising that we have all been hoping and praying for.
Mr. Akin, thank you so much. And again, our prayers, we're going to do our best. Obviously, we wanted to have you here because we wanted to have somebody who understands this situation. And we're going to continue to do our best in our capacity. And we hope our brothers and sisters across Canada and obviously across the world step in as well, because we need to make sure that this is the change, as you say, a sweeping wave that can go through Nigeria, but also go out throughout Africa, because there is a lot of changes that are required elsewhere in Africa as well. But in the meantime, we're with you. Our prayers are with you, and we wish you nothing but the best. And hopefully, the government and everyone at home can step in, and the people can be safe. Absolutely. Answer.
Thank you very much, brother. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and bringing attention to the Nigerian situation. Nigerian lives matter. End SARS matter. End police brutality is the agenda. And also entrench good governance in Nigeria and all over Africa is the agenda. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
A message from the Government of Canada.
So that was a conversation we had with Akin, and obviously looking at some of the topics that we touched on, and looking at what's going on in Nigeria. It is very sad, and we know that the Nigerian community globally, especially here in Canada, are affected by it. And so, like I said in the interview, we're with you. We hope the rest of Africa can join you, especially the leadership, because to me, even the global, in terms of who we are as Africa, but also even the rest of the world. Because when things happen in Asia, when things happen in Europe, when things happen in America, we step up and we raise our voice. So we need you to also join in this, in terms of what we are trying to do to achieve true freedom, not for nations, but for people of Africa. And so we really want to see that change, and Nigeria hopefully can be that light that sparks the rest of Africa. Because to me, we've gained independence from colonization and obviously slavery and everything, but we have yet to gain freedom. And from most of our wise ancestors, what we've learned is freedom and power is not given. Power is taken. I always refer back to my one of my hero, Dr. John Henry Clark, who says, power is not given, is taken. If you want power, if you want freedom, you will not be asking for it, you just take it. And that is really the point. For young Africans, for the Nigerians who are on the street, yes, there is bloodshed, and we really don't want to see that. But at the end of the day, when we are oppressed, when we are feeling like we're not being listened to, asking somebody who is holding something from you to give it to you when they know that they benefit from you not having it is almost a waste of time. So let's do whatever we can to keep peace, but still, let's protest if we have to. Let's do whatever we need to do. Obviously, just protesting alone is not enough. Sit in these positions. There is election that's coming up in Nigeria. Be those young people that are actually going to represent your demographic. And we also do the same thing. We hope that the rest of Africa can do that. Because honestly, if we really want to take lead globally, we should be able to have the freedom of expression, but also the freedom to do the things that we want to do. Because one thing I believe, and you will see this in many of the programs that we do, is that you cannot be creative, you cannot be innovative if you live under the oppression of fear of the people that are supposed to lead you. So with that, tonight I want to say we are with you, Nigeria, and SARS, and any brutality anywhere in the world, so we can actually do the work of building. I'll see you again tomorrow.